Hey, it's MJ from the Coaches Panel. I hope you're well and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Strategy Roundtable where we help you with your AFL fantasy side as we head into a fascinating week. Best 22 is back on deck for just the third time all year, and we're about to get a bunch of them in a row. No more early buys, at least for now, and we're about to learn a bunch about what our team builds have been like. And there is a bunch of challenging stuff on top of that with a really long round of football starting Wednesday night going right through till Sunday. So to help us get there, I've got fellow co-founder Rids on board for this episode. A one-on-one chat, mate. You and me on this episode. We're going to help the AFL fantasy community together. It's been an interesting couple of weeks, and it feels like the next couple of weeks is going to really separate the wheat from the chaff.
So it's going old school, MJ, and I reckon that you might remember about 12, 13 years ago, I would have been working in a state at the time in Melbourne, and that's where this dream pretty much came together, yeah? So, and guess what? I'm working in a state again, and it's one-on-one again, mate. So, yeah, we're going back to the future.
Nothing's changed in the past, 10 years or so that we've been doing the Coaches Panel. I wanted, before we get really anywhere else, we do need to talk about the returning back to best 22s. 4 of the past 6 weeks, best 18. So it's meant a lot of poorer scores have fallen off and potentially protected coaches with some loopholing of some bench options. For example, a Zach Williams last week, people were able to potentially protect that if they were a Blake Howes owner and let a Graham come on field and pick up themselves another 30, 40 odd points potentially. But how important is this now in terms of how we've built our team? Structurally, the trades, the plans. Are we about to see some element of separation from the pack, or is it still way too early to start to see some movement from those that have planned, had a little bit of luck, and prepared and executed well with their starting squad and early squad plans?
Well, one of the elements that I really loved about the best 18 rodeo was you can take risks on the riskier types, like the Zach Williams, yeah? Because if something does go wrong when it's best 18, then you have that little blanket, safety blanket, where they fall off your team. Now, I think someone like a Dane Zorko is one that many coaches have missed, but for the same principles, yeah? Everyone was saying, I think you did that tweet from Coaches Panel on the weekend saying, oh, yeah, the checklist, the Zorko checklist, too old, injury prone, gets suspended, another 100, tick.
Yeah, scores another 100.
But guess what, mate? In reality, if you're going to break it down, and I think this is something that we should take a learning out of if we do venture back into best 18s next year, they're the sort of guys that we should be looking at jumping on when we have that safety blanket of best 18 around us. Because if something does happen where they drop out, they just drop out of your scores for the week and away you go. And hopefully one of your rookies can pop a score and cover for them. But guess what? On the flip side of that, mate, if they pop like a Zorko has, wow, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great takeaway for us is so much of us in the, not just the content creator space, but as an AFL fantasy community, we're a little bit uncertain about how we should structure some of these premium options or value option guys. But you look at Zorko and you go, man, under 800,000 in a weak forward line and with a plethora of great cash cow options, the writing did, it's a hindsight commentary now, but it does look like, man, we could have loaded that extra cash cow on the field at Dempsey, for example. And all of a sudden, you've got a Heaney, you've got a Dempsey, you've got a Powell, you've got a Zorko, and you're away, ladies and gentlemen. So it's absolutely a huge thing. And then talking of the buys, like the mid-season buys are coming. So often we're used to planning our early team around the buys. And we've done that, I think, relatively well through the first 6 weeks. And I do think people have thought about round 13. So the Butters, the Sarong, the Young, the Rosie have all been popular selections in part because how they're going to help you through the middle portion of the buys. But if you haven't thought about what your team looks like in 6 weeks' time, Rids, is that an alarming thing for coaches? Or do you think, nah, we've got 12 trades, 15 trades if you include round 12. You should be able to navigate your way through any sort of chaos that the next few months throws your way.
I love how you use those very dramatic words, alarming. Like, it's like, you know, I'm expecting like a alarm to go off in the background. But
Well, we
the
can make
fact
that
of the
work.
matter is, you need to still have it in focus, because what it does is it means you don't have that versatility in the team. And if someone does pop on a buy round that you are heavy in, and let's just say round 12, okay? If we get another round 12 forward premium that pops right now, we have
Mhm.
to wait for 7 weeks until we can actually get to them, because we've got the Heenies, we've got the Pals, we've got those sort of guys,
Zorko. Yeah.
Zorkos, and they just keep coming on and on and on. So I wouldn't be alarmed right now, but you do need to start taking a bit of notice about it as we move out of the buys and getting ready to enter the buys, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. A term you introduced into the fantasy community landscape around about 12 months ago, not a new ideology, but a new terminology to really help us, was around this idea of bench hygiene. And that is making sure that, yes, when we're in upgrade season and we've got our upgrading cadence where we're trying to bring in as many premium players that we want to be able to run for 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 weeks till the end of the season, whatever it need be, that you put on the map for us really well with some great language around making sure it's not at the cost of losing options on your bench, generating cash, still moving some scores, because you're going to find yourself in that middle portion of the year. Now, while you might be ahead on points and ahead on an upgrade, you're now well behind the pack. As I
Yeah.
look at
So you
what
think
things
about it,
are,
MJ. Let's
yeah,
just explain that a little bit.
please, let's
So
do that
the
because then I've got a
idea
question for
is
you.
we want to trade into guys that are going to generate cash and keep
Yes.
ticking that cash generation over and over for your team. And then, you think about it now, we're in round 7. We've got guys like Roberts that have really popped nice scores. We've got
Mm-hmm.
guys up into the 500, 600,000 brackets from rookies. That's what
Yep.
we're really looking for, that 6, 7 game period.
Yep.
That's when we're in the buys, because that's the time that we're going into luxury season, where we're trying to really get the best of the best on the lines with the fixtures and everything else. And that's the time that we tend to struggle a little bit. Yeah. We
Mm.
go, oh, yeah, we've got great guys. And sometimes we look at that shiny red thing over in the corner and go, hey, I'm bringing in a Bontempelli, or I'm bringing in a Zach Merritt, or I'm bringing in a Rowan Marshall, or I'm bringing in this guy. And then we go, oh no, we can't even get all our rookies off the field right now because
Yeah.
we've spent too many of those dollars. And we haven't got that bench cash that we want to utilize and free up as we downgrade in and keep turning it over to get those other guys up to the big guys. And that's the half the battle, yeah? We want
Yes.
to have not just all the rookies off the field, but we want to have the best completed team as we can. So that way then we can start looking at sideways trading into getting those, let's say, the guys that are just that next rung down below off the big guys. And this
Mhm.
may be a poor example, okay, but we want to
Sure.
turn a Hayden Young, if he's going at 95, into someone that's going 105. Like, because it's
Yeah.
10 points or 15 points worth of upside in that trade if that's what they maintain for the rest of the year. So that's what we're trying to do, but we are going to have to find cash to do so. So it's very important not to neglect guys like Garcia, for instance,
Mm.
this week. He is probably the best downgrade option right now, but I'm
For
seeing
this week, for sure.
questions around it, okay, going, hey, can we just fade Garcia and we can just go Massimo to this person and then sideways trade a Bonner to, like, let's say McCrae, for instance, okay?
Sure.
Yeah, of course you can do that, but are you going to be better for doing that in 5 or 7 rounds' time? That's going to be the trick of this. And, how many times have we done this over the years, MJ? We've done this over and over and over again. The definition of crazy is like expecting a different result, yeah? Doing the same
Yeah,
thing
from doing the
over and
same
over.
thing.
So you want to try and work out, what was the lesson I learnt by not having that cash on the bench and having that ability to be able to get to the best completed team we can. And AF has added that extra dynamic, 2 trades, use them or lose them, week to
100%.
week. And it's really delicate. It's put that real focus on the cash, on the team builds, on getting those must-haves. And we spoke about it at the pre-season radio, the Setterfields from last year or the
Yes.
Zeebles from last year. Right now, we're looking at Bonner. We're looking at Tristan Cherry.
Yeah.
We're looking at really key names. If you don't have them, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. Isaac Heaney. We're talking
Yes.
about Nick Martin, okay?
Yes.
We've got some very clear guys and names now. But, the preseason, we talk about them as an object. We
Yeah,
want
now we've
the
got
next
names.
Setterfield. We've actually got the
Yes.
names. We know who it is. We know it's a Bonner, for instance.
Yep.
Quick cash gen, and we're going to have to time this exit at some point. So that's what that future downgrade. But guess what, mate? We don't want to
Yes.
just go to the $200,000 rook that appears on a debut. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to generate that bench cash. We're going to
So
have
talk
to
to me
go
about
to
that, because
rival.
sometimes talk me
Yeah,
through
you
that,
go.
because sometimes we go, oh, the gap can be 60, 70,000. All of a sudden that gets me the upgrade to the player I really want, and I can get ahead of the pack. And people did that with Closey, for example, and I would say they've got lucky to a degree in jumping blind into these basement guys. So why are you saying don't do that, especially if it prevents you from doing the upgrade? Help people understand that kind of dilemma point there.
So someone like Closey is probably a bad example, okay?
Sure.
Because there was elements and variables around why he was able to be
An
traded
okay
into.
option to do that.
There's going to be variables around this. It's not going to be an exact science where it's one rule fits everyone. But for instance, like this week, okay, we've got Laurie back for Melbourne tomorrow night.
Mm.
Do we want to just go jump straight into him? Or are we worried that he's going to be vesty, that he's in the wrong team to play those midfield minutes that we really, really need out of him to generate those scores, to generate the cash? So that's the sort of thing, okay? Whereas with Gold Coast, you think about it, mate. When Closey came into the team, he didn't really have any VFL games under his belt at that point in time. He was just coming back into the system.
Mm.
He replaced older guys that
Yes.
were sort of there, and then Hardwick went, oh no, it's time to rejuvenate the list. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when we saw the Closies coming in for a Brandon Ellis, for
Yeah.
instance. And we saw Sexton being pushed out of the
Out of the
side,
team.
and then
Flanders go
Flanders being pushed
back.
back. We
Yeah.
saw that Hardwick made a call within 5, 6 rounds. You
Yep.
can trust that to a point, because if he's going to make that sort of call, then you're expecting him to actually see it out for 5 or 6 rounds and see what
Yeah.
it looks like. But the language after the first game,
Made it very
Closey was
obvious.
great. He was
Yeah.
amazing. There's just ways of seeing stuff. Garcia, I know this is a hindsight call now.
Sure.
Garcia right now was the right move last week. And you know what gives it away to a point? The role, the CBAs,
Yes.
mate, that he had in
Yeah.
the
Quarter
right
and a bit.
team. You think
Yeah.
about it, it is the right team, because really,
Absolutely.
outside of Jack Steele, Windhager's been in there. There's no
Mhm.
Crouch.
Nope.
Dow at the time wasn't playing. I think he's coming
Mhm.
in this week, but
I've heard that too. Yep.
there's a lot of minutes there. He's having CBAs from day dot, and he's impressing. His way,
Yes.
it's obvious that he's just too good for VFL, yeah?
Yeah, of
But
course he
they
is.
need it. But you think about it. Richmond's going to be in, let's say, a full rebuild mode in the next month or so.
Yep.
That's when you go looking for a Kane McAuliffe to come into the
100%.
team and to look at that. So it's not a one rule fits everything, but we can still have educated guesses when we do take those risks. But you think about last year, mate. We had Dylan Williams, we had Bailey Humphrey, we had a few guys that we traded into in over 300,000 that still generated $200,000 worth of cash.
The role. Yeah.
Because they had the role, they had the situation, they had the right team dynamic at that point in time when they were injected into that team that kept that, cash ticking over for your team cash.
100%. It's interesting because we always get worried about whether or not cash cows are going to come on the horizon, but is it too simple to just go, history tells us we don't have to be too worried about sub 350k options coming through. You've mentioned Richmond there. At some point in the next few months, it's just give the kids a crack and see what they could do. Adelaide probably should be in a pretty similar position relatively soon. And other teams, as they start to realize they're not where they'd hoped their season might be heading, start to experiment with some things. Sort of in this next 6-week window, we start to see things turn the corner a little bit through there. Are you not concerned about some future downgrade options? And as such, that's not affecting who and how you look to make your trade upgrades?
Right now, I am. Okay.
Right.
But you said it perfectly. Every year we hit this point in time. But guess what? We do have guys coming through. We got the St Kilda defender, but everything's a defender this year, okay? Everything is a defender. We've got Schoenmaker. We've got Ethan Phillips. We've got
from the Crows. Yeah, another one.
Curtin from the Crows. We got Braden George for North Melbourne that should get a game at some point in time.
I agree.
There are people that are coming through, but it's very, very important that we get picky with who we're actually going to and we get the timing right. Because I think one of the most undersold points of this game is getting the timing right, whether it's upgrades, downgrades, jumping off mid prices. It's all about timing. And you think about it, mate. And I'll use a perfect example. And I was listening to Hatchat the other, I think it was yesterday or today.
Yeah, some good lads.
DC traded Tom Stewart last week to Sam Walsh. That's what I'm talking about with the timing. He did not foresee that there was going to be an injury to Tom Stewart. No, he didn't see that at all.
It was a structural thing.
But the thing was, he went, hey, there's something not quite right with Tom Stewart. Okay, I don't think he's going to be, and it might be the fact that Sheasel's gone crazy. Nick Martin's now going at 110. There might be better options. And he just didn't see Stewart averaging more than 95. And he went, you know what? I want Sam Walsh because Sam Walsh, whilst he might not be the top meaty midfield premium,
he's going to knock on the door at the very least.
Exactly. He had a bit of cash and he's going to be close enough for now. You could put a blanket over 20 midfielders. So why not have him in there?
Yep.
We got how many defenders we had coming through? We had Roberts, we had Bonner, we had Martin, we had Eamon, we had McCrae. It just doesn't stop. Everything's about defenders, yeah? But the thing is, why not make that move? But again, the whole point of this, it's the timing, MJ. It's not that you've made the trade. It's getting the timing right. And the only time you can actually really work out whether you do or if you don't is in hindsight.
Of course.
But the fact of the matter is, and I'm going to say this as nicely as I can, and I know DC, he's a great lad.
He's had him on the 50 most relevant in the preseason
with him all the time and everything else. there's a bit of affiliation between everyone in the content creators groups these days. But the fact of the matter is, that is a big ballsy move, mate, to trade out of a steward who you started with, because something just didn't feel right. But then you couple that with the timing of the trade, and no one's
Little bit of
ever
luck.
wishing injury on anyone.
No. Luck always is a factor, but it wasn't just a pure luck trade.
No,
far from it.
he backed his gut, and he saw something and didn't want to do it. And again, I don't normally hype on just trades, but it's a really good example of getting the timing right. And that's one of those things that we plaster over. We go, yeah. And we've been pretty lucky the last couple of years, yeah? And you think about the geniuses like Monk and, the JDs and the Matty Mottrams who go back-to-back hats year after year, because what they do is they back their gut, but they've got a way to play the game. And they are so comfortable with how they're playing the game. And I mean, I hate the term playbook because I don't think anything's a playbook. But the thing is, people play it a certain way. And when they find it and get comfortable in their skin, that's the important stuff, yeah? And that's what I'm trying to do myself. This is the first time I'm playing it seriously for quite a few years. I'm trying to find my identity, my way, get comfortable in my skin on how to play it. Yeah, I can play fantasy. That's not a problem. But the thing is, I have to find how it works for me in my style. That's why it's so hard as content creators giving it a general advice all the time, because we are biased to our own teams, yeah? We're always based on our teams. Even though we don't really highlight our teams, everything is still based around our teams. So when someone goes, is it right to trade this guy this week? And we sit
you
there
base it
and the
off your
first thing we
perspective.
go, would we trade that guy if he's in our team? And you go, no, I wouldn't right now. That's the advice you get. That doesn't mean much. That just means, yeah, we're giving general advice. We probably wouldn't, but guess what? We don't own them. How would we know if we would or not? We're not in that situation at times. That's why it's so hard to give that general advice, yeah?
Oh, 100%. There's a couple of players I do want to talk about. Timing of trading out of options. We do need to quickly look over the DPPs. An absolute ton of great work. Jaden, who again, we did an episode over on YouTube that you can go and check out, pretty much named and nailed every single DPP option that was right. So we do want to still cover on them, but I feel like there's 4 players that specifically reads. I think we want to spend a couple of minutes on every single one. We could spend a heap of time on others, but last week felt like the renaissance of Jack McCrae. Biggest score for the year, 120 plus. After some subs and some cascading poor scores, he's now at a really attainable price where he's break even and average are very much in line. He's just on that bit over that 700,000 price point. And in a moment, I know you're going to let loose on some of your thoughts about it, but some said, Libber's out. He got more CBAs. That's why he popped. No, the CBAs weren't the reason he popped. He did not get a more center bounce attendance role. Statistically, that's not there. But talk to me about McCrae. Is he and should he be a high trade priority for us this week?
I think people are overthinking this, okay? This is one of the easiest decisions you could possibly have right now. MJ, I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay? Jackson McCrae priced at 80. Would you think that represents value?
In a normal year, yes. In this year, in a forward line that we don't love anything 90 plus, 10 times more so.
What happens if you've got the round 15 buy and you are a forward priced at 80 that you see as value right now? Would you think that's a good idea?
Well, you don't have to be committed to them for the season, do you? You've got an 8-week stretch that you can run them, have another DPP batch that loads through, get some line of sight of what the season has and holds, and flip at the buy if you need to.
Okay, mate. I've got one more question to you. Outside of the three big boys, okay, and I'm
Okay.
talking Heaney, Flanders, and Zorko,
Sure.
has there been any other forward that has the ability to pop 120 plus score?
Historically?
Yeah, let's say historically.
Not with the volume of frequency that McCrae does.
Yes, correct. So are we overthinking this? And I get it, okay? We want to all get on the bandwagon and bash Bevo. We all want to make up our silly, like, why
Hashtag.
McCrae is not an issue. Like, it has issues because of the tilting of the head or whatever it is, okay? I get it. It's a bit of fun. It's a bit of banter. We should just take it as lighthearted and move on. But the fact of the
Sure.
matter is, and these are the cold hard facts, is there any other forward that can match McCrae right now that's going to be suited for a F4, F5? Can you believe I'm saying this, MJ? F4 or F5
For Jack McCrae. Yeah.
for Jackson McCrae. We're talking about someone who was an M1 only a few years ago. And I'm not talking about a guy who's going to average 110. I'm talking about a guy who potentially only has to average 85 to 90
From
to
here
do
on to be
his
worth
job.
it. Yeah.
Like, I just think we've overthought this, we're overstated it. Like, and I don't want to tell people how to play the game, but we're all searching for value, yeah? Like, I mean, he's not going to go 120 plus week in, week out. But guess what? Libby coming back in that team does not hurt him. Like, you
Absolutely.
said it a minute ago with the CBAs, yeah? It wasn't
Yeah,
like
statistically.
Jackson McCrae went in and had 70 plus percentage of CBAs. He
No,
didn't.
that was Ed Richards.
Yeah, The other thing I just wanted to highlight as well, his draw at the moment is pretty damn good. Like, and I don't know about you, mate, but do you think he's done his I don't know, there's a bit of a system here. Bevo's under the pump, yeah?
Yes.
Who are you going to rely on when you're under the pump? Guys that have been through the system and through success and everything else. And there's a bit of he's done his penance, yeah? Like, he's
Yeah.
done his time. Bevo's had his bit of moments earlier on. That's fine. He's gone through. But let's face it, mate. This guy has to be better. And we're talking about a $200,000 spend on a fat rookie, yeah? Like, you think about a Sanders to McCrae this week. What are we talking? 200 and something? Like, there's
Yeah,
not
not even
much.
250, 220K.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Like, that's got to be better. Like, what if right now Sanders, what have you got any confidence about 50, 55 right now with like
No,
subs, and is he even best
no, of course you
22?
can't.
I got no confidence over 50, 55 right now.
No.
Do I have confidence over McCrae at 80, 85? Yeah. That's a pretty big points upgrade, yeah, for the two. So, and we're not talking like you're going to have to restructure your whole team. This is just a
No.
standard rookie down, rookie up. Like,
It's a
this is
very
very
simple one up.
attainable.
It's a Garcia who you put on the radar. For people that don't own him, he's the lay down Mazair downgrade option without any doubt in my mind this week. I want to ask specifically, because you said there's two questions I want to ask. You said, is there anybody else that you trust in that range? Well, some would put a Jai Caldwell on that space. Now, he's had a relatively good past 3 to 4 weeks. Kind of really the cream on top of it was a big ton last week against the Crows. He is more expensive, but over the season in totality, much better scorer. Is there a world where you would ever pick a Caldwell at this point in time over a McCrae, or is
100%.
that just crazy? Yeah.
No, 100% you would. But it's got to
Right.
be team specific, okay? Because they have different buys. If I'm already heavy in that round 15 buy, I would still be open to trading into round 15 and then jumping ship to a round 12, round 13 buy player after they've had their buy. I would
Yeah.
still look at that. But I'm not saying you have to choose one or the other. Why not give it a couple more rounds and see what Caldwell keeps going? I want to see what Caldwell's doing with Setterfield in the team. I want to
Yes.
see what it looks like, with all of the Essendon mids back, with
Durham staying
every.
in CBAs. Yeah.
Well, Durham's definitely not moving out, yeah? There's no
Not off the
problems about
past
that.
2 weeks. No way. No.
But I would say there's no way that Caldwell's moving out right now too.
You can't move him out.
But guess what,
Maybe
mate?
it's
It only
Parish.
takes one
Yeah.
bad game, yeah?
And you're out.
Because we saw it last week. Caldwell stayed in the CBAs, but it pushed Zach Merritt to the forward line last week.
Mm.
It only takes one bad game to change that. And I still think with someone like Brad Scott, who's still trying to find out about things,
Mm.
I still just don't have the comfortable nature of going Caldwell over a McCrae. But of course
Yep.
you can. But again, it's got to
You
be
can.
your appetite, yeah?
So I feel like there's two players that are a high trade-in priority for people this week. And Nick Daicos is one of them, and we'll talk about him in a moment. And the other is a Jackson Macrae. Before we quickly do look at a Daicos as the other one, for those that don't own a Sam Flanders, now it's another 200,000 on top of what McCrae is right now. So if you're looking to move up from a Cadman who you put on the radar, not to say move out of Cadman, but as an illustration point of a Cadman to McCrae, it's another further 200,000 to get up to Flanders. If you're a non-Flanders owner and you're looking at McCrae, you want to get a premium, and I use that term loosely, but get a cow off the ground in your forward line. Maybe that's the safest way to allude to it. Who are you prioritizing for coaches? Because that 200K can help a lot in the next couple of weeks, but Flanders in this halfback role is going 110, 120 for days. So if you don't own Flanders, McCrae this week and take the value, or is Flanders just too hard to ignore? What do you say to a coach that's stuck in that in-between space?
Well, for a start, I doubt you'll be able to get a rookie up to Flanders unless you've done some serious double downgrade last week and
The
a
week
few
before.
other things, and you banked a bit of money. That's the
Yep.
first thing. The
Sure.
second thing is, I don't think it's a fat rookie to Flanders is the option. So I think there's two scenarios here, okay? I think
Sure.
you're looking at someone like a Zach Fisher, a failed mid, or what people regard as a
Zach
failed mid
Williams maybe
pricer.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
up to a Flanders, which is
Mm-hmm.
only that 300,000 jump, which is the
Yep.
same jump from a Cadman to a McCrae.
McCrae.
That's the world that we're talking about right now. The thing
Yes.
I just want to highlight to people with Zach Fisher right now, though, is there's been a lot of noise about Sheasel going to mid forward, playing
Mm-hmm.
that new role that a few of us were scared off in the preseason about. It's now
Sure.
eventuating. We haven't seen it yet, but there is a world that it happens this week, mate. There's been enough
Yep.
noise, out of the North Melbourne camp. There's been enough noise out of Clarkson. Whether he reverts back and pushes him back behind the ball mid-game, who knows? But who's going to be the distributor out of half-back, mate?
Well, that would
I
be
would be
Fisher in
leaning
that case.
towards Zach Fisher. So there's a lot of ball down there that's got to be eaten by someone. And McCurcher's only a rookie coming off,
Mm.
he's already gone 60s and 70s, and we're much happier with having McCurcher in that role.
Mm-hmm.
But we just traded out, a lot of us traded out of McCurcher last week. So
Correct.
it's a real delicate balance, yeah. But I'd be a little bit, hey, don't go trading out of someone who you paid 70, who's been going at 75 as a failed option.
Yeah.
Because really, it's only about perception. It's more about the management of our expectations, not the
Correct.
player and how he's going. We may see it
100%.
as like he's not making cash. Yeah, but guess what? He's filling a role for your team in a
He's
very
keeping a cow off the
powerful.
field for you. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. You
absolutely.
don't want to have someone and like, do you really want
It's
a
the
guy
Gallaghers
who's
and Wilson types
yeah,
that can
they could
drop a
pop a
50.
30, pop a
Yeah.
40, pop a 50. At least with Fisher, he had a shocker last week. He went 60, but before that, he was still going at 80s and 85s. And yeah, he did save a few of those late, but
Doesn't
I
matter.
still have more confidence. The problem with Fisher, though, is the buy round. Yeah, he's round
Yeah,
12 buy. It's going to make that exit point really
harder
difficult.
than others.
But
I
guess what,
agree.
mate?
So,
With Harley Reid being rested this week and Dempsey having, let's say, a tougher run for Geelong for the
yep.
next few weeks, it's going to be a real intriguing dynamic now with our forward lines and having the rookies. Because at one stage, we were thinking, you beauty, we're going to have good rookies.
We can run 3 or 4 on field here. Yeah.
Yeah, like Sanders has now got question marks around
Mm-hmm.
his role, his spot in the team. I mean, there's question marks everywhere, yeah? But the fact of the matter is, don't overthink it. Someone like Sanders, okay, I think last week we were all smart enough to go, yeah, this was Bevo teaching the kid a lesson for his
100%.
reactions of being subbed the week before.
Yeah, they'll back him in.
I reckon they'll back him in, and he's too high a talent, like draft talent, and they're not going to keep doing this. They're not going to mismanage him.
No.
You got to trust someone, and I know that we love to hate Bevo, yeah, but we were doing this
Everyone
to
needs a villain.
Simpson, like we're doing it to everyone at the moment. But someone like a Sam Mitchell hasn't been the greatest friend of fantasy coaches in the world. Justin Longmuir is another one. We've got John Longmire. You remember John Longmire used to play Tom Mitchell as a small forward?
Yeah, Horst. Yep. Yeah, I remember it.
You know, he put him in the midfield that week. He got 40 possessions. He scored about 150. And then the next week, he started him as a small forward. Like this, we do have history of this. Ross Lyon for years used to, it's almost like he came out of his way to annoy us fantasy coaches. And whilst at the moment we're all banging on about Bevo, like at the end of the day, and it might be justified, yeah. But the thing is, we just have to deal with it because we can't say we're going to just neglect everything with the Dogs. They score too many bloody points. There's too many
got too many good
guys in the
options.
Dogs. You think of English, you think of Bontempelli, you think of all these guys, McCrae this week.
Yeah, McCrae.
Of course, we go into these guys. Like, they're just everywhere, mate. They just score.
So if McCrae's clearly a high trade priority, and then as you mentioned, if you've got a mid-price, more Williams is probably the option more than a Fisher. I wouldn't be moving out of Fisher just yet to get up to a Flanders. Okay, those are some options. If you're not looking to address a forward upgrade, chances are you're highly looking at Nick Daicos as an in. Based on the top 1,000 stats, a high percentage of low ownership through there. So there are a bunch of coaches that have still started with a house on fire and have had a solid start from Nick Daicos because he's not been bad for owners. He's been fine with the exception of 1 week. He's been okay. But the reality is non-owners versus owners at this junction, the non-owners would feel like they've won. In fact, they did. Not that it's a battle, but let's say it that. So this is now the time.
They absolutely won.
They definitely
won. You don't have to tippy-toe and walk on eggshells.
I'm trying to be nice. Okay, it worked in their favor.
The funny thing about it, though, is they won due to the friendliest matchup for Daicos.
The one that everyone was
nothing to do with him. It was nothing to do with anyone else. It was all to
Nah.
do with St Kilda. That's why
Yeah.
they won.
Who would have thought that the most favourable matchup on paper during that stretch ended up being the undoing for Daicos owners? Regardless of Daicos owners, you're able to focus on the McCraes, probably you're a premium short in another line. So you're probably looking to address that, whether it be get the Bont, get Flanders, whatever it is. For those that don't own Daicos, they have quote unquote won. Okay, no quotes. They won. Last week was good. I know some people traded into him last week because they just didn't want to have to navigate the risk of figuring it out from here on in. How much of a high priority for this is it for non-owners now, Rids? They've won. They can potentially walk away from the metaphorical poker table with house money. They're in a really good shape, but his break even is at 124. Essendon's an okay matchup. It's potentially going to be a bit wet later on Anzac Day. Is this the number one trade priority universally for non-owners?
Outside of McCrae, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so if I never do trade priorities because it's just impossible because everyone owns different players.
Every team's different. Banked cash, no cash, all that stuff. I
So
agree.
right now, my trade priorities for the week, Garcia is at number one. And if you
Yes.
don't own Garcia, I really do strongly advise because he's the guy that's going to have that bench hygiene I was talking about. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Number two for me is McCrae due to the forward lines, and the fact that
Yes.
Harley Reid is being rested this week. And I don't know. I'm just not confident around the rookies in the forward lines when
You
there's
don't want
no
to run the
Harley Reid,
Wilson, Gallagher, Cadman gauntlet.
Sanders,
Yeah, I get
whatever
that.
it is, like Dempsey, or with tough matchups. Like this
Yep.
just doesn't stop, yeah. And
Yeah.
then I'd have Daicos at number three. The
Okay.
reason why I have him at number three, I still think he's 105 to 110 defender. I still think he's the top two defender for the
I
year.
agree.
That's still 10 points of like I know the price
Value.
points are about 100, bit over 100, whatever it is, okay, 102.
Yeah.
He's still 5 points to potentially 10 points of value, but not just that, MJ. He's a captain option right now because
Absolutely
when
is.
he pops, he's 120 to 150 merchant, this guy. He is the best player in the league for a reason.
Mm. And it did look like Collingwood found their mojo back on the weekend as well, pretty much from the latter part of the first quarter right through the Reds. They did start to look like the Collingwood we know from last year, and Daicos getting back to getting that around the back handball received, transition point, and away goes. So we did start to see that. So it does feel like coaches are making moves with one of those three options that sit there. They're getting Garcia if they're needing a downgrade option if they've already got him. Okay, well, there aren't as many great options that are there, but potentially, as you've alluded to, there's some stalling mid-price options, such as a Williams, a Bonner, that you can look to move off. And then really, I think the vast majority of the community are bringing in one of, at least, McCrae and or Daicos this week.
And I think that's it, mate. I think I don't think this is the week to get creative. Okay. I think this is a straight bat week this week.
Yeah. Is
Get
that
in the
because it's
guy
best
you're going to
22
be.
and
Yes,
just
I
want to
do.
see where the dust lands? Yes. Yeah.
I think you need to because right now we feel like we know where we are. I
Yeah.
really don't think we will really understand where we are until round 8, until round 9. And just while I'm talking about round 9, don't forget Daicos plays West Coast in round 9. So don't go getting too cute with Daicos. I
Don't go too.
understand 124 break even. You might be able to, get another 10, 15,000. Like,
Yeah.
And dependent on your team and the balance
Sure.
of your team, I still don't think this is one that you muck around with. When you got the opportunity to bring him in, you just bring him in. And then if you need to adjust or pivot later, you can do so, but just do it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. One last specific player I want to ask you about before we head back to last little bit of general advice before we look to wrap up the episode. Tristan Cherry's just been amazing for us at the start of the year. Really was, regardless of the other options that you went at R1, whether you went the Grundy, the Gawn, Marshall, English, I think everyone would now mostly say they would have loved to have had Gawn and Cherry as their R1 and R2. I know there are a bunch of people that have the three-headed rock monster with Grundy. Some have made that evolution already. Others will look to do that over the next week or two. My question with that to a side for the moment is, in about 2 to 3 weeks' time, coaches were telegraphing round 9 almost as the trade of, that's when a Tim English or a Rowan Marshall are probably coming down to their lowest point. Cherry's just coming through a potentially challenging run over the next couple of weeks, and everything kind of aligns that it could almost be a $50,000 trade of upgrade from one to the other. Is that still how you see it around a Tristan Cherry? I know it's different for people that still have Gawn, Grundy, and Cherry, but for the vast majority of the community that don't have that, is that still the way you see this playing out?
I do.
Yep.
Now, there's a couple of things about this, okay? And you did allude to the three ruck monster. And I just want to put everything on the table right now. I'm pretty sure everyone knows I got the three ruck monster at the moment in my
You got the
team.
monster?
I've got the Gawn, Grundy, Cherry combination right now. And as lovely as last week was, it does create headaches, okay, moving forward, because this was the week that we want to jump off. And I
Yeah.
mean, I also started a Livingston, okay, who had that 200K ruck forward as a loophole option to be able to loop between the two in util. So I set him
Yes.
in the util and I kept flipping it through. So guys like Grundy, when he pops a 53 in round 1, I was able to go, no, Cherry, you're playing R2 today. But then
Yeah.
on other occasions, when, say, Grundy or Cherry popped 120 at R3, I was able to just go, okay, Livingston, time for you to roll into R2 for right now,
Yep.
which meant that my exit strategy this week was always to jump off Grundy and go and get my mid defender Daicos.
Primo in
And
another line, really. Yeah.
well, it was always Daicos, yeah, because
Yes.
that's just the timing that we always had was Anzac Day. And
Mm.
I mean, if people can remember that, like, I mean, we were talking about this run for Daicos, when to jump on it, and it was directly after the Port matchup after his bye.
Correct.
And so the challenge we always had was, how were we going to get Daicos?
Mm.
That's one of the rain. And I've got to give credit here to DT Lemon. He was the first one that threw this idea out into the open, into the public array. I then had conversations with him after that fact, discussed it all through. I just wasn't comfortable having 30 green dots with the three rucks because
Mm.
I didn't like not having that loop exit strategy because
Sure.
I couldn't quite work it out. I didn't want to trade into a red dot last week like Lemon did because, I mean, he's such a wise coach, Radio. He's,
Mm.
in my eyes, he's the new age goat of fantasy. The way that he goes about it and the way that he sees things compared to everyone else is really, like, it feels like we're just living in the wake of him, at times. We're trying to, yeah, but there's things about this, yeah. We've been playing for years, MJ, and whenever
Yes.
we see an amazing coach come along, and we've seen many of them, whether it's Selby, I mean, someone like a statesman, he's been around for years, he's
Done very well for a
absolutely
long
gun
time.
at what he's doing. And you think about
Yeah.
fantasy over the last couple of years, we've got guys like Holmesy, for instance, who've gone back
Yep.
to back. We've now got Monk, who's gone back to back. We're seeing these
JD.
amazing
Yeah.
ones. But 10 years ago, we saw the Hooks of the world.
Oh,
You
there's a
know,
flashback.
yeah, and Pete was one of the main reasons why I got heavily involved in fantasy back in the day. Like, because he was just a great guy, and you think about it, we got JB made in the Supercoach world. We've got the JDs now. We've got all these initials, MJ and JD and JB, and oh my God, it just
Key to
goes on and on.
success. Just saying.
But
DR. Just
every
saying.
time Selby then came on the path, and then presented, oh yeah, you go for the value, you do this, you do that, and that's your focus. And then now we've transitioned again and we've made new elaborate things. But guess what? Cherry
Yeah.
is the question, What are we doing with Cherry? There's 2 or 3 things with this, okay, MJ, and I'm going to really say it. He's got a round 12 bye. This is
It's
going to
not
be
good.
really problematic if you're heavy on round 12 bye players in that forward line that we were only discussing a minute ago. The second thing is he didn't have an early bye. So
Nope.
this is a 24-year-old, 25-year-old in his first
First
official
year carrying the mantle.
ruck,
Yeah.
okay, as sole ruck. He doesn't have a Goldstein to chop him out. He
Nope.
doesn't have someone to manage his times through the games. He's doing 6, 8, 10 tackles a game right now, MJ. That takes a
Yeah.
toll,
Huge.
mate, when you're 200 something centimeters, 100 and something kg. It takes a toll.
Yeah.
How's he going to go getting into the bye? And this was one of the reasons why we are highlighted. Hey, Cherry's awesome, You start him, you make that cash gen, but this is the time that you look for an English or a Marshall. A couple of weeks ago, we've seen people jumping off at Grundy, okay, and jumping onto Marshall. And I think you probably done it yourself, yeah?
I did do that. Yeah. Round 5.
Nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that trade at all. But we never expected to be doing it to Grundy at that buy. We were expecting
No.
to do it for Cherry at this interval.
Mm.
I am not totally against trading a Tristan Cherry from now on, even though
Right.
he's been absolutely outstanding. There's
Sure.
no question about that. But we're not playing rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 again. We're playing from now onwards.
7 on.
Is he going to maintain this level of excellence between round 7 to round 11, for an instance, with that draw? And then how's he going to pull up after having the bye? And can we hold him for even deeper into the season? Is 107 average sustainable from right now for it? And it could be, mate. 100%.
Absolutely could be. Absolutely could be.
But you've got to
Yeah.
question it, yeah? And are we got more confidence on a guy like Tim English, bouncing back? Are we going to be more comfortable with a Rowan Marshall? And we've got enough question marks around Marshall right now, okay, because we've got the coach coming out saying, hey, the guy's tired, that's probably enough to go, and I think a week ago, if I asked you last week, how you feeling about Marshall trading? Yeah, I'm going good, yeah.
Would have
I'm
felt
coming off
comfortable. Yeah.
138. Yeah, I'm going all right. I ask you a week later, how you feeling about the Marshall trade right now?
Oh, yeah, geez, maybe I could have held on. Yeah. That's
You
the
see
beauty of
what I mean?
fantasy. Yeah, it changes in a week.
Yeah.
Really,
And
really
so,
quickly.
and the fact is, we could be sitting here this time next week
100%.
talking about Cherry scoring a 70 against O'Brien against the Crows in Tasmania
In
this week.
Blunston. Yeah, it's very probable.
Are we going to be jumping off him now? Because we've seen that one. You've got to be proactive at times. But the thing is, it takes massive kahunas, to be proactive in the way that fantasy's being played these days. Because it's much better, and we said it in the preseason, it's much better to be in the majority if you get it wrong.
Yes.
You know, if you make a mistake and don't get that timing right, you want to be in the majority so it doesn't
Yeah.
impact you specifically. So right now,
100%.
we got a coin flip. I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell anyone what to do. But it's not as simple as, oh, you can't trade out of Cherry right now. The fact is,
No,
Grundy's had a week off.
yep.
He's come out and gone bang. And I've
Yep.
seen a bit of old Grundy last week. I don't know about
It
you
was,
with the tackles and
yes,
everything.
he was back.
He's now got Hawthorn and also he's got GWS the week after. They're
Mm.
not bad matchups. Cherry scored 126 against Hawthorn last week. Like Briggs, that's who Marshall went and got 138 against the
He
week
monstered
before.
him.
Like, they're not bad ruck matchups, yeah?
No, they're
All
fine.
I can
I
tell
don't
you right
think.
now is the
Yeah,
one person I'm very comfortable with right now is Maxi Gorn at
I
R1.
don't think there's one owner of Max that's not holding on. I don't think outside of those that have the triple-headed monster are probably prioritizing Cherry this week out. They're looking at the Macraes and the Daicos, but as you've mentioned, Crows aren't an easy matchup for rucks. Venue wise, we'll see. You're just putting it on the radar for everyone, but you're highlighting a really important dilemma
Yeah,
for
and I'm just
those that are in
again,
triples.
MJ, I'm in that position where I've got the three-headed monster, yeah? So I have been thinking through this. I have been going, who do I have to trade out? Because a week ago it
Yes.
was very clear cut.
Yeah, a week
Right
changes a
now,
lot, doesn't it?
yeah, 1 week of
Ooh.
football, mate, changes everything. So
It-
so whatever you decide to do, just back your own judgment on it, and whether you want to hold them. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that holding the three rucks and holding a 800,000 guy on your bench and not having
yeah.
those points on the field is viable. It is viable this week,
It's
MJ.
still viable. Yeah, it's crazy to think it's
They're
still
both going
really
to make
viable.
40,000 just by hitting hundreds. Like, that's a lot of cash, mate.
A lot of cash to walk away from. If you haven't caught up on the news, I think the vast majority of Coaches Panel listeners and viewers have, is Sunday night. Well over 30 new dual position players landed into the game, really shaking up our defensive lines, giving us a lot of freedom of movement now to be able to move on the types of a Williams, a D'Ambrosio, amongst others. And even a Tom Stewart for those that are looking to move him out this week, which I think is a real viable play with needing to get Daicos and him out with the concussion. It just adds so many versatile free movements. I don't think many coaches have, outside of a couple of top line premium mids and a Jeremy Sharp. I think pretty much almost every other mid forward or defender people have probably has some element of DPP. So huge amount. We've got them listed for you at Coaches Panel social media, but really they're in the game. And I think most people know them, but there doesn't feel, Rids, like we gained someone that gained a new position that we didn't know was coming, that has shook up what a top line premium scorer might be. Everybody that picked it up that is near that upper echelons, like a Martin, for example, we knew it. So while there's some great handy ins, gone are the days where it feels like we get surprise and delight moments on as lockout lifts and we actually find out who's picked up dual position status.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the next lot that come through where we might be able to pinch a Petrarca with a fit
Yeah.
Oliver back in that midfield, where we might be able to get, whether it's a Laird or a Dawson. Like, a lot depends on the Crouch and on the Saligos and on the Rochellis and Rankins. And don't forget, MJ, we're talking about a week is a big game. It's a big
Mm-hmm.
time, yeah? Well, 1 week ago, all the talk was about Rankin. Like,
Yeah.
we just everything changes so quickly. It doesn't take long for a Petrarca to become a forward. You know what I mean?
No,
Like, maybe Taranto's probably a bad choice because he's injured right now. But someone
but it's
like a
that time
Taranto
too.
who's had forwards at some point could
Luke
become
Parker might get
Luke
it for us coming
Parker.
back from
Yeah.
injury. Yeah.
And then suddenly one injury in the midfield puts him back in the midfield and we're running again. Someone like a Matthew Kennedy is a very intriguing one for the DPPs, yeah?
Yeah. Picking up
So,
forward stance.
yeah, you think about it, mate. It only takes one Walsh back injury to have Kennedy deep in the mid rotations,
Yeah.
and that puts him to a 9,500 forward. It only takes one injury or one element of bad luck for one person to create an opportunity for another. So we just got to see. There's going to be teams like Richmond, like North Melbourne, like potentially Adelaide,
Yep.
teams that their finals are over,
Move the
that are going to
magnets. Yeah.
try a few things.
Yep.
We just got to be
Yep.
aware and tricky on this, okay?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Lastly, before we wrap up the episode, we are getting to that fattened cash cow and topped out mid-priced at a time. And so we've talked a bit about Fisher and Bonner already on this episode. Sanders we've alluded to. Harley Reid, I don't think anybody is looking to move him on just yet. Wilson, Gallagher, Cadman. There's a bunch of these guys that are really maybe have tops another 30 to 50,000 to make on top of them. I know team dependent is the answer, but help coaches more generically speaking, Rids, in the last minute or two before we wrap up the episode. How do they prioritize these guys that mostly have good job security that are either going down or up to maneuvers? How do they prioritize the right guys to move out? What's some baseline advice that helps people?
So someone like a Bonner, okay, like has he generated enough cash? Yes, he has.
Yeah.
Okay. Is his cash generation slowing? Yes, it
Yes.
is, because the higher you get priced, the slower you're going to generate, unless you get that average to keep going up as well at the same trajectory. Someone like that, he can be traded at any point, but don't force it. You don't want to force it. It's the person you're replacing him on the field with and how you get in the cash. Because if you're trading someone who's already on your field to a weaker player, does that mean the points you gain from a Bonner to a Bont is lost from like let's say McCurcher to whoever, That's going to be the balance you've got to look at. That's why bench hygiene is so important, MJ, because the preferable
100%.
thing is to actually grab the cash from the bench and then upgrade the Bonner. So the upgrade in points from, say, a Bonner to a Zach Merritt is actually what you're going to get for your team benefits.
Yeah.
You're not actually robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, if anything, you're pushing scores off the field, not bringing poor scores onto the field.
Yeah, correct.
Hey, mate, you've helped us a lot throughout this episode. It's been nice to have a trip down memory lane too on a couple of references and go a little old school with just you and I on a podcast, mate. As always, mate, an absolute pleasure talking about AFL fantasy with you.
Well, I reckon we had a beer at the Wilbara, did we not? In the CBD
At several
of Melbourne.
places. At several places. Yeah.
I think Casino. I think that was the days of Tim and Jimmy and everyone else. Yeah, that was the good old days. And don't you forget the Fox? The Fox was around then.
Mate, every week we get asked, when's the Fox getting back on the panel? It's like he's still floating around in the ether, but just taking a little bit of time away from the limelight of the coaches panel at the moment. So, yep. Maybe one day he'll jump back on a pod. We'll see. Hey, mate, as always, an absolute pleasure. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you give it a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. And if you haven't subscribed to the Coaches Panel audio podcast, make sure you do that. If you're watching this back on YouTube, comment below and let us know what your trade plans are this week. We'll do what we can to get back in touch with you there. And if you haven't subscribed and turned the notification bell on, make sure you do that. There are a bunch of great places you can get in touch with us right throughout the week. All the links to our social media and where you can get other episodes from the Coaches Panel you can find in the description of this episode. And also there are the links to our Patreon supporter group. Those incredible human beings have been getting a bunch of additional content during the season, let alone in the preseason. Whether it's at that cash cow, the breakout, or premium tier, there is a bunch of different rewards, hidden group access, and a ton of other stuff. If you want to support the coaches panel, let alone get access to this additional content, all you need to do is click the link in the description, join our Patreon, find the tier that's right for you, get the rewards you want, and you'll be on your way. Hey, good luck this week. Yes.
MJ, before we cancel off, okay?
Yes.
Tell us, who won this Triple C matchup of the coaches panel coaches? Was it the unbeaten Monk, or was it the world beater MJ who keeps breaking the undefeated teams?
For the third time in the Content Creators Cup, I lost a game by under 10 points. So, no, unfortunately, you can thank Riley Bonner for not doing anything in the last quarter. For doing that, actually, you could probably thank me for screwing up and putting the wrong cash cow on my forward line, but that's fine. So 9 points I lost this week.
And I believe Monk is still undefeated in the...
Monk is the only undefeated. Then you've got Mitch and Bales have only lost one. DC, Holmesy, Jepper are the only others then that have only lost two. So, I'm holding up the bottom half of the ladder quite nicely at the moment, despite from a total points perspective looking pretty solid. I'm just landing the wrong way of the 50-50 battles at the moment, but I do see you there just sneaking your way through, and then Louis just continues to knock everybody off as well as Monk. So coaches panel boys doing all right in the Content Creators Cup as well.
Yeah, so anyways, big shout out to everyone involved. It's been a bit of fun, yeah?
Yes, it's fun to lose every week, Reds. Not at all. Hey, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Good luck in round 7. We hope everything goes your way with your vice captain. Absolutely nails it early, that your decisions of trades work out. The rookie roulette is kind to you. No scores falling off. If they're on the field, they're going to count for you. I hope round 7 is kind to you. And we can't wait to be back with you next week talking about AFL Fantasy.